Montello. I'm the coordinator of the Creative Arts Therapy Certificate Program here at the New School. And we have a very special 4-week program here that each week will introduce a different creative arts therapy and leader in the field. And today we have a very unique contribution, which is writing through nature workshop with Priscilla Stuckey, who is a professor at Prescott University in Arizona in humanities. And she has also had a lot of training and experience in religious studies at several universities. And she has written her first book, which she's on a book tour now, presenting her work around the country. And she will share with us her experiences with, it sounds like opening the heart through writing about nature. So, welcome, Priscilla Stuckey. Glad you're here.
Thank you so much, Louise. I am thrilled to be here. I have come to New York all too seldom over the past decades, and it's exciting to be here. And thank you to each of you for showing up this evening. I would like to, I titled this Writing as Listening because a lot of the skills that make writing meaningful to me are the same skills that make life meaningful. So I would like to do a little exploration of writing and life tonight. And I would like to do it as a writing workshop if all of you are game. I'm not sure it was billed that way, so I don't want to take anybody by surprise. But I would invite you to pull out pen and paper. We're going to stop every now and then for some writing exercises, if you're up for it. Does that sound okay with everybody? I also have an email list if you would like to keep in touch after tonight. I don't send out many emails, sometimes a blog post, sometimes announcement of events, but not all that often. And I'll send this around if you'd like to add your name and email. So one of my inspirations for tonight is a little book by John Lee called Writing from the Body. And one sentence in that book pretty much sums up what I would like us to experience tonight. Everything we write comes from what we are, from what we have inside. If we commit to inhabiting our bodies completely, our writing will be the poetry or prose of transformation. The themes of the body, of listening, of being in the body, of being present, are all themes that make writing meaningful and make life meaningful as well. And my other inspiration tonight is my own book, which just came out in September, my first book, and I am beyond thrilled. It's called Kissed by a Fox and Other Stories of Friendship in Nature. And I'd like to illustrate what I'm talking about by reading a couple of pages from the book. From the small cardboard box in my closet, I pull a single photo, a 4-inch square of faded color showing a tall, weeping birch tree, its leafless winter branches a graceful spiderwork of wispy white. The air is hazy as the previous night's ice storm has condensed now into an icy fog. Pale background light suggests a watery sun trying against all odds to spread rosy hues over new fallen snow. I remember taking this photo around 8 o'clock one morning just before heading off to high school in Archbold, a tiny town in northwest Ohio. My favorite tree, planted just beside the house, looked breathtaking, sheathed in ice. Next to this photo in the same cardboard box is another one of the birch tree, this one taken in autumn. Bright gold leaves and white trunk shimmer against a cerulean frame of October sky. 15 years later, when I was 33 and just beginning the journey of listening to nature, the birch tree became a friend at a deeper level. I was living 2,000 miles away from it on a hillside in Oakland, California, when I was startled one evening by something I'd never before experienced. I'd recently had to get used to a lot of changes. At Christmas, I'd fallen ill with a flu and never fully recovered. And for half a year now, I'd scaled back my life. Less editing work, slower doctoral studies, going out with my husband only rarely. Now it was June of 1990, and I'd just been diagnosed with chronic fatigue immune dysfunction syndrome. I dragged myself through each day feeling as if 20-pound weights were strapped to each limb. Each step took considerable effort. I could feel, but not see, that our hillside flat flowed ever so slightly downward because walking across the living room floor took less effort in one direction than the other. One evening, as I headed downhill on that floor just after dinner, an image popped into my mind. It was the birch tree. And in the space of a moment, the tree was as present inside my head as the sofa was present before my eyes. I sank onto the sofa and closed my eyes. What was happening? I hadn't thought of the birch tree for years and had no reason to be thinking of it now. There was no announcement. There were no words. The tree simply rose in my awareness, its tall, graceful image strong in my mind, stronger somehow than a memory. The presence remained vivid for a few moments, then gradually faded. A feeling of quiet gravity, almost sadness, had accompanied it. 2 weeks later, I received a call from my older brother, who still lived in Archbold. We talked of the failing health of our aging parents, the estate sale that was soon to come. Then Bro added slowly, "Well, I'm afraid we're going to have to cut down the birch tree. It's got a disease or something." Ah, so that was it. The tree had come to say goodbye. I hung up the phone and stopped for a moment to focus my attention on the birch tree again. How was this possible? I didn't know, but I felt grateful. That autumn, at the sale of our parents' house, I picked up pieces of freshly cut birch limbs to carry home to California. One I burned on New Year's Eve some years later, gazing quietly at the flames that curled and flashed around the white skeleton of my old friend. In the new year, I gathered the ashes carefully into a grocery bag and took them to a ceramics class. There, my teacher helped me stir them with other minerals into a glaze, and I painted the mixture onto a slim vase I'd recently sculpted. Today, as I write, the vase sits on a cabinet across from me, its sweeping curves finished in speckled cream. So a number of the themes that we're going to talk about tonight are encapsulated in that story. I'd like to, we'll just run through a little bit what we're going to cover tonight. I'd like to talk a bit about quieting the mind and what that has to do with good writing, listening to the body, listening to the breath, listening to the earth, and following the image. But first, before we get into all that, I wonder if you would join me in some writing warm-ups. Just a little series of 3-minute exercises. It's enough to get our writing muscle, to exercise our writing muscles and get in the flow of putting words on paper. So if everybody's game, I'll just suggest a little prompt, and about 3 minutes later, I'll suggest another one, and 3 minutes after that, another one. So let's just spend about 10 minutes in writing. And if you don't feel like writing, you can sit and quiet your mind or whatever else you want to do. This is often called free writing, and the kind of the point behind free writing is just to keep the writing happening. So you just keep writing. Don't let yourself stop. If you feel stuck, just repeat Don't worry about spelling, grammar, punctuation. Don't worry about all that. Just write as quickly or as fast as you can, whatever pops into your mind. So the first prompt I thought we might start with is answering a question. What do I have time for? And you might start by just repeating the question on the paper, and if you get stuck, you can write the question again. And I will, about 3 minutes from now, you'll hear my voice again. You can keep going with that, or if you would like to switch to the next prompt is yellow. What do you think of when you hear the word yellow? And you can keep going where you are, or if you'd like the next prompt, I suggest answering the question, what do I want? And when you're ready, you can draw your writing to a suitable conclusion. So what are some of the ingredients we just experienced? Well, I think we experienced a quieting of the mind, and that to me is one of the basic ingredients in writing. We have to still the mind just enough to listen to what's going on inside us and to be able to hear what wants to come out. Quieting the mind to listen to the body is slowing the mind down to the speed that we might associate with the soft animal body that Mary Oliver talks about in her wonderful poem, Wild Geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. And this is the soft animal who lives in my house. This is Bodhi, and his soft animal body loves snow. This was Brio, who was our cat for a number of years, and he's definitely slowing to the speed of the body. He's found a shaft of sunlight. He has found Tim's hand, and this is an occupy moment where he is occupying the sun and a lap at the same time. What could be better? So I invite you to turn again to writing, and let's spend a few minutes. I invite you to imagine yourself slowing to the speed of the body, and with your breath slowing, your body slowing, imagine you might be a cat who's just found a shaft of sunlight and maybe wants to curl up, or maybe just found a lap. What do you do? What does your body feel like? Write it on the page. We quiet the mind so we can listen to the body. And sometimes we listen to the body to quiet the mind. One of the most powerful meditations I use in life as well as in writing is a body scan, which I will invite us to do in a bit. Listening to the body is a practice that engages us in experiencing body sensations, which is a way to deepen writing, a way to deepen the details that you feel and therefore can communicate to others on the page. So we listen to the body in order to feel. I think of this poem by Kabir, which goes in part, "Be strong then and enter into your own body. There you have a solid place for your feet. Think about it carefully. Don't go off somewhere else." Kabir says this, "Just throw away all thoughts of imaginary things and stand firm in that which you are." Or about the faculty of feeling, the activity of feeling, I think of these lines from Theodore Rothke's poem, The Waking. "We think by feeling. What is there to know? I hear my being dance from ear to ear. I wake to sleep and take my waking slow." So So I invite you to imagine that you're in a nice, quiet place, preparing to listen to your body. Perhaps you're on a bench like this, under a tree. Perhaps you're on your sofa or on your bed. Spend a moment imagining yourself quiet. Allow your awareness to travel throughout your body, from the top of your head, down through your neck, into your torso, down your arms, your back, down through your legs, your feet. As your awareness sweeps through your body, what do you notice? Does any part of your body hold a little more tension than another part? Does any part of your body have something to say? I invite you to choose one part of your body. Focus on that one part and see what it would like to say. Invite it to speak if it wants to speak. Or imagine it as a shape. If it were a shape, what shape would it be? What texture would it be? What color would it be? One part of your body has a color or speech or shape or texture to communicate. I invite you to write that on the page. After quieting the mind, listening to the body, we can listen to the breath. The word inspiration, after all, means to breathe in, inspire. Inspiration for writing is intimately connected with our breath, and to unleash some of the most powerful feelings in our writing, we need to stay in touch with our breath. And I thought I'd read another passage from when I was getting to know a creek in Oakland. The creek here is actually Boulder Creek, where I live now in Boulder, Colorado. For most of the year, the speaker was saying, stream flows are highest at midnight and lowest at midday. I was attending a forestry conference a half dozen years after meeting the creek in Oakland. And the speaker taught earth science at UC Berkeley. Most of the year, he said, creeks keep up a predictable daily rhythm, surging in the middle of the night and subsiding at noon. They ebb and flow because trees and plants transpire or breathe water out of their leaves and needles. Following the stream flow, he said, gives us a way of watching the whole watershed breathing in and breathing out. I blinked, astonished, not expecting to hear about breathing from an earth scientist. Breathing in, breathing out, the most fundamental act of life, taking in energy, expelling waste, inhaling oxygen, exhaling carbon dioxide. What mammals do through lungs, fish through gills, and insects through a complex system of tubes and vessels. What cells do across their cell walls. Breathing in, breathing out, the rhythm upon which all living resides. The fundamental activity of the universal being, according to Zen teacher Suzuki. What we call I is just a swinging door which moves when we inhale and when we exhale. Breathing in, breathing out. Respiring, transpiring, perspiring. Air and water circling, moving in and out, a flow, a rhythm, an endless undulation as long as breathing lasts. We step toward greater life in aspiring. We share breath when conspiring. And at the end of life, when the breath flows away one final time, we expire. Breath is life, inspiring. To breathe is to create. I invite you now to participate in a little exercise called ocean breath. I invite you to pretend that your breath is like an ocean wave moving in and moving out. Perhaps you're sitting by the sea and listening, and you can almost feel the waves take over your whole body. As you breathe in, the wave comes in. As you breathe out, the wave passes out. And it comes in again, and it passes out again. Surging in, filling your whole body, surging out. As you feel the power of your breath surging through your body, I invite you to communicate that on the page. And the final kind of listening I'd like to talk about, the kind of listening that for me puts it all together, is listening to Earth. We are, after all, listening to our bodies, and Earth is the body of us all. So to listen to the Earth is to listen to another part of ourselves, a part of being in different form. Here are some of the Earth beings I listen to. On the top left, there's a tall grass from the leftover remnants of tall grass prairie near where I live. This is right outside my house in Boulder. I have loved oak forests. I just saw California oak again a couple of weeks ago and took that picture. Moving around the circle, there's some bluebird eggs. I'm a monitor for bluebirds in Boulder, where we go around and check the various nests and see who's hatching and how many and how well they're doing. And that's my little grandnephew in the middle there, also an earth being. And one of my favorite wildflowers, a harebell, shows up in mountain and plains ecosystems in about June and lasts through most of the summer. You have your own set of earth beings you listen to. Perhaps you remember a place you lived as a child, a special place you went to in nature. Perhaps there's a tree on your street here in New York that you pay attention to, or you happen to notice what it's doing at the various seasons. Perhaps you're a fan of, or were a fan of pale male. I understand there was a notorious red-tailed hawk around New York City a few years back. Perhaps he's still around. These are all forms of listening to Earth. Each of us can watch and learn, noting when each bird returns to our area in the spring, tracking their habits with close attention as we would the travels of our friends, learning the tracks of animals, tracing their outlines in mud as lovingly as we might the whorls of a child's painting, noting the moon phases, the sunrises and sunsets, not only when they happen, a minute or 2 or 3 different from the day before, but how they happen, each one unique, each its personality shaped by cloud and wind and temperature. We can teach our children how to root themselves in place. We can be instrumental in training our various communities to do likewise. I recently experienced a Maya elder explaining to a mostly white audience how to talk to the sun. In the morning, he said, when sunlight cracks your window and falls on your face, do you do this? He reeled backward, pulling imaginary covers over his head, and muttered, "Oh, shit." Or do you do this? He stood up straight, opening his arms wide to the imaginary window. His face aglow, he shouted, "Thank you, thank you." Cultivating a relationship with land means being responsible to the creatures who live where we live, paying attention to their needs as if they were members of our own family, which of course they are, each individual and species co-creating the landscape. Where I live now, the prairie dogs feeding eagles. Where I used to live in California, the oak trees nourishing squirrels and deer with their acorns. Or here in New York, the trees along the urban sidewalk refreshing the air. To the microbes in the soil, we can work to protect them from devastations of poison. To the fish, we can free streams and rivers so that waters can flow and fish can run. To the birds and animals, we can restore habitat so they will have places to migrate and to live. To the trees in the urban sidewalk, we can murmur, "Thank you, thank you." To the birds twittering in their branches, we can say, "Hello, my relative." But the most basic gift of love is simply attention, taking time to notice how the sunlight lands on the tree outside the window at high noon in summer, listening to the rustle of grasses in their spring delicacy or fall crispness, or distinguishing the whirring of wind in pines from wind in spruces. These are not skills modern people must depend on for our food. Few of us hunt or farm for a living. But they remain the currency of friendship, being delighted by the mystery of another and simply dwelling in that one's presence. It's a close attention that is practiced even by some who would be reluctant to call it love. I think of a story that nature writer Kathleen Dean Moore tells about giving a speech at a park ranger convention on the joys of loving the land. Afterward, a ranger from the audience came up to her. "I like what you say," he told her, "but I wonder if you couldn't say it without using the L word." Moore was tempted to regard him as another casualty of what she calls the sadness of all science, which trains its practitioners to become, as she says, like secret lovers, thrilling to the touch of the breeze, or being astonished at the intricacy of genomes, yet forbidden to speak of their feelings. But then she reconsidered. "So what word," she asked the park ranger, "shall we use instead of the L word?" She says he paused a long moment before answering. "Maybe instead we should say listen to, giving full attention to, dwelling in the presence of the other. What if we truly listened to the world?" I invite you to think for a few minutes about some of the earth beings you listen to, and pick one and write a little bit about your relationship with that earth being. So then we come to the part that puts it all together for me. After we've done all this listening, after we've trained our minds to slow to the speed of the body, after we've written our impressions on the page, there's one writing practice that really sums it up for me, and it's following the image. I will never forget when I was practicing the craft of creative writing. I come out of academic writing. I've always journaled my whole life, but I also did a lot of academic writing. And in academic writing, you have an idea that you want to communicate, and you figure out the best way to communicate it, making, several major points about it. But in creative writing, and in each of the chapters of this book, they unfolded in a far different way. They unfolded by following the image. My writing teacher, who I worked with as I was practicing the craft, would just keep repeating, "follow the image." So if she saw that there was a mixed metaphor in my paragraph, I'd put too many images, she'd say, "Follow the image. Pick one, follow that image. See where it leads. Follow it in your mind." And I kept wondering what she meant. She said, "Well, it's like a movie, you just focus on that image in your mind and see what happens to it next, and you write that on the page." And she created all her fiction writing in that very way. I adapted that for nonfiction writing by finding an image that called to me focusing on it, and writing what came to mind next. So I wasn't exactly watching a movie in my mind, but I was following that image or that thought or that feeling as it unfolded. And in the process of writing, I also paid attention to anything that would cross my desk. If an article came across my desk and took my attention, I assumed that it had something to say about what I was writing about in that chapter and wanted to be included in that chapter. So I would figure out a way to piece it into the chapter and include it. And in fact, each chapter became much richer by doing that, by being receptive to what crossed my desk, by following the image. This is a receptive process of, instead of choosing with the mind where to go next, receiving what wants to happen next. And it's a writing that's a journey of faith, which I know all of life is. We don't know what happens next. Sometimes we're going through a woods that seems fairly dark. We don't know where the writing path leads either. It's a journey of discovery. We don't have a map ahead of time. We just follow what happens. I experience creative writing as this amazing process of unfolding in this way. So I invite you now to look over the images that you have written for yourself this evening, and I invite you to pick one and dwell on it a little bit more and see if something else wants to be said about it. Does it want to go somewhere? Does it want you to follow? We'll take a few minutes to pick one image from your writing tonight and follow it. We have some time for sharing what our experiences have been. I would really love to hear how you experienced the writing exercises. Did you discover anything about yourself or about your writing? Did your writing take any different shape than usual? Was it comfortable as usual? Was it uncomfortable as usual? All of us have different experiences of writing at different times. So I would love to, if you'll say your first name and share anything about the process that you would like to share. Feel free to read a paragraph if you would like to read a paragraph, whatever you would like. How did you experience the writing exercises? Yes?
Hey, I'm Sarah. I asked a lot of questions. I asked more questions than I think I normally do or think about.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would write, do I want to feel okay in my body?
Mm-hmm.
Do I want to be there?
Mm-hmm.
How do I get there?
Was that a discovery?
It was something I hadn't isolated that thought before.
Mm-hmm. It's a rich one to live with for a while. Anyone else have a favorite image that they picked to follow tonight?
I have one that I've forgotten about since I was a kid. Movies. Old lollipops, round and green, hold my attention like none other. I lap up your verdant flavor and suck the tame tartness that soothes my worried heart. Good enough to eat, the mighty oak beckons with its green leaves reflecting the sun's pure light. This is the ground I seek, the food I eat, the strength I need to walk these next steps into the unknown. A lollipop became a tree.
Mm. Following the image. I found myself following the image of the cat curling up in a shaft of sunlight. and how much I'm going to enjoy doing that when the sun gets a little bit warmer. And it became the image of the light entering the body giving off light, and a marriage of light and body.
Came very late. I missed a lot of it. I wish I had from Shannon. So I didn't get to get into the body stuff, but I started with the water breath, and I immediately got into the writing. It's just words, almost like a meditation. Storm surge, full lull, into which pride and shame and nerve is poured and poured back into me, with unbated, screaming, undulating, mishmash of sand and gravel and spray and mist twirl toward deep places, turning me over and over, spin in slow water motion like silken twilight. And then that silken twilight, I didn't know what that meant, and so I went with that for my last image, and I had this image of like a silk scarf up against the sun going down, and it led me to the beauty of the ending. And you're pulling away from me after that last shudder, the turning of our goodbye on the sidewalk, or the turning back from that last look over my shoulder. There's beauty in the lulls between now and next now and next now. Beauty is in the last cell of your skin as it lifts off of mine at the end of a caress. There is beauty in lips pulling apart but softly stuck in wetness, unsealing, lifting, unreeling, goodbying. Will there be beauty at the very end? So it got me to this whole other place. It was fun.
Sounds like you've written. Yes, and I could hear the rhythm of the waves, and it has turned into the rhythm of a poem. I hear a poem there.
This was really interesting. I'm a journal writer too,
And your name is?
my name is Trina, and I had a very difficult time with with seeing or knowing myself and my body as the ocean, the ebbing flow of the ocean, and I found myself recognizing my resistance to it and saying, I need to be contained, I can't be messy, I can't, and it also, and I think throughout the rest of the process, I became very aware of anxiety, I think, that I hadn't recognized in my body or in my psyche at the moment, and it kind of ruminating on the picture. I know that it will snow tomorrow, and I know that kind of navigating through the city today, I've heard a lot of this anxiety about the snow, and I just didn't know how much it kind of hit me in that way. I have arthritis, and I do know that if I allow myself to feel tomorrow's weather, that I can, and sometimes I feel it, but I'm not conscious of it, and it was just, which isn't a bad or a good thing,
Right.
it just is, and I feel like it's so important to even recognize our anxiety and feel that through.
Yes, we've taken a meditative approach to writing tonight, and one thing about both meditation and writing is that it can bring to the conscious mind things that we weren't aware of before. And I hope that the tool of writing becomes one that you can use to work out some, whatever it is, the anxiety or the joy or the fear or the whatever it is. Writing about it communicates to others. We all know what you're talking about. We have no problem understanding what you mean because we all experience that too. And when people find their experience reflected in someone else's writing, that's when we connect with the writing. And when we sit down to do the writing and those things come up, writing them out and writing them through helps to process what's going on because it helps to put the conscious mind and the unconscious mind together. So yeah, it is important to recognize, and the process that we're doing is likely to bring more up. Anyone else?
I got anxious about the word yellow.
And your name is?
I said yellow, yuck, yellow, loud, yellow, ouch, yellow, pop. Yellow, even the word, is uncomfortable and getting a knot in my stomach thinking about yellow. I'd rather be thinking about knots. Like, there's a drawing that somebody gave me called Our Lady of the Knots. And I'd rather be thinking about Our Lady of the Knots and what kind of artwork I can do about knots.
You followed the image, and that's where it led. And you were honest on the page, and you just recorded what was going on. That's a piece of writing that is true to the moment, true to your experience, true to the body. Did your feeling about the yellow shift at any point, or did it just remain there?
No, it shifted into the knots.
Okay.
I made the knot in my stomach become more pleasant. I went away from the yellow. The knot of the yellow, I took it to a place where a knot was not a bad thing.
Following the image through the writing. Anyone else have an experience they want to share or observation about the process? Or
I just want to say that just like yellow, the word yellow, I don't know, created some negative connotations in my head. So maybe most of the writing was maybe around that image, and maybe because I was feeling tired or something like that. But towards the end, when I was following the image, then it became therapeutic for me. Because then I let myself get away from it. And then yellow transformed into something really sunny.
interesting. Sometimes the image shifts and sometimes it doesn't and leads us into more intensity. And sometimes it changes into something else. And your name is?
Edith.
And your name is?
Everett.
Thank you. Any other observations?
I took the question more than once. And when I first wrote it, it came out as a lot of anger. Why do people put this spotlight on me, asking me to tell me what I want? It's akin to asking a child to get married. You can't predict what you want. It always comes itself. And then the last exercise, I wrote just like 2 sentences. I wrote, the paper upon which I write is a map without a pathway to be drawn. That pathway has not unfolded as yet, therefore the map must wait.
A journey of faith. We have a few more minutes if anyone else wants to share a piece of your experience. Or ask any questions about the writing process, or...
Can you
talk a little more about writing and bringing the conscious and the unconscious together, and when anxiety and these things do come up, how do you keep sitting with them? I guess is what I'm trying to
I think like that. Just continuing to sit with them, continuing to
Explore them?
yes.
Then do you worry about the point of ruminating too much and then becoming neurotic?
You can feel the difference, can't you? You can feel it in your body when that shift happens, when it's a helpful kind of reflection and when it becomes a little obsessive. At least I think I can feel it. Your breath changes, the feeling in your body changes, your shoulders hunch a little, or something tighten, the belly might tighten. I think those two processes have very different feels, and if you keep checking in with your body, you can tell which path you're on. And write it. Write what you're experiencing, write what the body is feeling. Meditators, meditation teachers just teach sitting with it and continuing to breathe through it, just continuing to notice. This is what's happening, now this is what's happening, it's getting more intense. In writing, we do that on the page. In meditation, sometimes we just do it by following the breath. Do meditation and writing seem related to you? They seem so related to me. Does it seem related to you too? Yeah.
I think I fear the idea of just letting ideas kind of flow without catching them. So I feel like writing is very, very different than meditation. Maybe it's just a strand of meditation that I'm imagining, but I have some friends of mine who meditate who are okay with just letting the thoughts flow and seeing them, or just like letting them be. I don't know. I want to catch them. I don't want them to see, I want to play. So yeah, I think maybe the flow is the same. There's something that's very, very different.
Anyone else have anything to add about that relationship? Well, I am grateful to each of you for coming tonight and for participating and being good sports and exercising your writing muscles. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you for your attention and for your creative writing. You are creative writers, all of you. And each of us is a creative liver as well. And I wish you continued joy and discovery in this journey of faith. So thank you very much.